Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
I'm Don. I'm an alcoholic. Wow. What a treat. I want to... This is overwhelming to me. The love that I feel is just, I mean, it's absolutely overwhelming. And congratulations to Lydia. Lydia came up to me in the room out there about 2 months ago, and she said, "You don't remember me, do you?" And I thought, uh-oh, I've got a child out there someplace. or she's my daughter, or some damn thing, I don't know. And I said, no. And she said, we used to live across the street from you down on Raymond. And I went, oh my God. And she and her husband, they lived across the street from down in Santa Monica, and there was a barking dog involved, and we didn't see eye to eye. So what I used to do is I had a BB gun, and I would shoot out the front door across the street, and there was this tall picket fence about 6 feet tall, and I could hear the BBs hit when it hit the wood, you know, it'd plink. But every once in a while it would get to it and it'd hit the dog, and the dog would go, you know. Oh, screw it, it wasn't that far. But anyway, so then one day I'm out there and I'm looking out the front door, and I told a little kid in the apartment building next to me what I was doing. And then about a month later, I look out the front door and hear these two cops over there talking to Lydia and her husband at the white picket fence. And I saw one of the cops bend down and pick something up out of the dirt. And I thought, oh shit, they're picking up those BBs. So I took the BB gun and I ran up behind the neighbor's house and I hid it underneath his porch. And it's probably still there 23 years later, right? So that's what the story with Lydia and I are, you know, but it's just cool, you know. And then they moved up to the Palisades and I moved off. Yeah, that was at the end of my drinking, so it was like... it's unbelievable. You know, and welcome to the newcomers. Welcome to the out-of-towners. Happy birthday to the birthday people and the chip takers. It's awesome, you know, and Pete giving out coins, that's phenomenal. And, you know, I think of the love that is in Alcoholics Anonymous and the love that I have come to feel in this room and being around, you know. And there's a saying in AA, you know, restraint of tongue and pen, and my mouth has got me in a lot of trouble in AA, you know. And there's also a saying that if you have a resentment towards somebody, you have to pray for them. And I tell you, I get a lot of prayers. Because I give out resentments like they're confetti. But anyway, so it's just, but you know, the love, and it's what I've come to realize is the people who love you no matter what. And the people that don't like you, whatever you do, no matter what, that's fine. And there's the people in the middle that you know, don't have any concern. And it's unbelievable. But I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I've been sober. My sobriety date is August the 13th, 1991. So this coming August, I'll be 23 years sober if I don't drink, and I hope I don't. And, you know, it's just amazing. I've been coming to this meeting. I moved away for 3 years, so I didn't come that period of time. But I've been coming to this meeting every Sunday for 20 years. And I've had a commitment at this meeting for probably 19 and a half of those 20 years. And what I've come to realize is if you're around long enough and people don't like you, at least they'll tolerate you. You know, so it's no big deal. And so, you know, and this is kind of apropos, speaking on the 4th of July weekend, because I grew up in big, wonderful Wyoming, wild Wyoming. And it was 100 miles in any direction to the next town from where I grew up, and firecrackers were a big deal. On the end of each end of town, there were firecracker stands, and you know, I love firecrackers. And one kid that I knew, Jerry Bullock, blew his finger off with a cherry bomb, and Chet Cam, the guy lived across the street. I don't know if you know what a Roman candle is. He got a Roman candle blob right in the back of his neck, big scar burn. I had a firecracker go off in my finger one day. I didn't release it fast enough, and that's a weird feeling, sensation. And you know, it was a crazy time. I come from an alcoholic family. My dad was an alcoholic. My dad was born 2 months before Bill Wilson in 1895. My dad was born September. Bill was born November. And my dad served in the artillery in France in the First World War, 1917, 1918. And Bill Wilson was in the artillery in France in that time. And I've been trying to locate the records of Bill Wilson to see what unit he served in, and my dad to see if perhaps they were in the same unit. And it would be kind of, you'd never hear the end of that if I were, but... So anyway, but Bill Wilson luckily got drunk, and thank God, or got sober, and my dad never did, unfortunately. And my dad was a violent drunk. He periodic, but he'd get drunk, and you know, he'd come home. We'd have to hide my mom in the closet or under her bed or someplace if we couldn't get her out of the house when my dad got home, and he'd you know, he'd beat her up when he'd get in the house and his 4 kids, and that's just an awful feeling, you know, if you child feeling hopeless, can't save your mother and stuff like this, and you know, and my dad spanked me one time, and I was black and blue from my shoulder blades down to my legs with a belt, and I didn't feel too bad because Johnny Lichty's mother spanked him with a belt. She would make him pull his pants down. And John Tears, his dad, would spank him with a rubber hose. So that was just Wyoming, you know. We didn't know any different. And but anyway, I went to a Catholic school. I went to 12 years of Catholic schooling, and I was always in trouble. Well, not always, but you know, it seemed like I was always in trouble. And to this day, I'm always in trouble. I got in trouble last week, you know, over my mouth saying something, and I got in trouble. But you know, it's just what it is. And I mean, I was born in trouble, you know, because they spanked me the minute I got born, you know, and I just like, fuck the fuck. And anyway, so then when I was 9 years old, I was standing in the front yard one day, and these 3 boys went walking up the street, and they had 222s, and I started tagging along, and went up over the hill and down the other side, and they were shooting some cattle over on the other side of this. There was a pond over there on the other side of the railroad tracks. And the 14-year-old and I got in some sort of an argument. I don't remember exactly what it was. And I told him, I said, "You give me that gun, I'll shoot you." And so he handed me the 22, and he said, "I dare you. I dare you to shoot me. I dare you." And so I'm standing there with this 22 in my hands. I've never had a gun in my hands before in my life. And all of a sudden I hear the pop. And I hit him in the belly. I shot him in the belly. And all hell broke loose. And he stumbled around a rock there. And I just, one of the boys went for the sheriff, and one of them stayed there, and I stayed there. And then I said to the one boy, I said, "I'm going over here and pray." And he said, "You better." So I took off and up over the cliffs and ran home to my mother and could see the sheriff down there coming back. And I got in there into the house, and Mom was washing the kitchen floor, and I went in and told my sister, and all hell broke loose again. We headed to the hospital. And my mother was an RN at that hospital, and we got up there, and in the waiting room, Mrs. Lally was over there with 3 or 4 women who were ministering to her. And this 9-year-old child was standing there, and nobody was saying anything to this boy, and who was me. And I was just sobbing, you know, crying and scared shitless. And finally, a priest came in there and took me outside. And we went home that night, and my mother wasn't there. She was up in the emergency room with it. So I don't remember my dad. I don't see my dad at all in that period of time at all. And so we got home, and my brother and I, we went to bed that night early, and the phone rang at 8 o'clock, and my brother said, "Stay here," and he took off upstairs, and I wasn't about to stay. So I followed him upstairs, and I walked through the dining room into the living room just as my sister hung up the phone and said, "Martin Lally just died." And I mean, I lost it. I was crying and sobbing and screaming and whatnot. Anyway, had to go to the funeral and tell Mrs. Lally I was sorry, And there was never a word said about that shooting in our household for 21 years, never, not a word. But the little kids in the neighborhood, they would call me Killer. And they'd say, oh, don't play with Donald, he'll kill you. So all these kids I'd known for 9 years, it was like, ooh, don't play with Donald. And little Janice Brooks had a birthday party. It was about as far as the back wall back there, and I could see all these kids I'd known for 9 years back there playing, and I wasn't invited to the birthday party. And I built this wall up around me because and even to this day, rejection is kind of tough. But anyway, so there was an inquest. It was an accident, whatever. And so then I just, went on about my life. But the little kids, don't play with Donald, he'll kill you. And so going to school, and I can remember one time in a movie, the first alcohol I ever had was we would have some Mogan David wine with Christmas and Thanksgiving and things like that. And I always loved that Mogan David wine. I always felt like a big shot when I was having that little sip of Mogan David. And then there was a movie one time, a country and western movie, and the cowboy in there walked into the bar and he picked up this bottle of whiskey. And he broke the neck off the neck of the bottle in the bar, and he just drank it down. And I thought, oh, God, yeah, that's how I want to drink, just like that, And so I just, and then when I was 13 years old, I got sent away to a boys' boarding school in Kansas, 1,000 miles away from where we lived. And one more time I was feeling rejected, I remember that train pulling away and watching my parents, go. And I got down to that school, and I never did fit in. Alcoholics, and alcoholics just don't feel like they fit in. I think I was born an alcoholic. Because for newcomers, alcoholism does not happen when you're drinking. Alcoholism happens when you're not drinking. The disease of alcoholism centers in your brain. And in the doctor's opinion in the big book, it says they are restless, irritable, and discontented. That's my natural state. And that's the natural state that I remember from day one. And I got to have some relief from that thinking. And so when I take that first drink, it's like, God, I can breathe. So anyway, when I got down to Kansas, and I went to a bar one night and got drunk on 3-2 beer, and I couldn't get pass out because I had to get back to school. I knew to get. So anyway, I got back to school, and living in Wyoming, I used to like to pee outdoors. But down at this school, this Catholic school in Atchison, Kansas, one day, I got a bright idea that I was going to urinate on the edge of the school building. And I did. Well, there was a priest walking in from the field, and he saw me. And I tell you, I got in trouble. One more time, I'm in trouble. But I didn't get expelled. I fought anyway. And so I got drunk. My first major drunk was at 15. And somehow I graduated from high school. I don't know how. Because as a child, I had a learning disability. It was my parents. And my dad had an 8th grade education. My mother was a registered nurse, but education was never. I graduated from high school with a 1.75 GPA, and somehow I don't know how. When I was 30, I ended up graduating from the University of Utah with not much better grades, but I did graduate, summa cum laude, so I was lucky in that regard, and. I got in the military. I went to the military. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life, and it was like I went in the military, ended up in Vietnam, got some marijuana. I never did heroin just because it was probably never offered to me. But I just I got married before I went over there. I was 20, and this little gal was 16. She got me pregnant, so I married her, and. So, but unfortunately, when I got back, I became my father. I became a violent wife beater. And I knocked her out New Year's Eve, and then one time I picked her up and threw her across the bedroom, and we got divorced. And I just went on drinking, and I wasn't a daytime drinker, but I would drink at night, and when I was in Vietnam, I was always known to have a 5th of whiskey in my locker. And I love whiskey, beer, screw beer. I love whiskey. And so I somehow, I couldn't keep jobs. The first step, I couldn't keep a job. I couldn't, relationships. I chased women like, it was unbelievable. And a few years later, I got married again, and that marriage lasted 6 weeks because I grabbed her by the throat one day on Mother's Day and told her if she ever threw any of my shit away again, I'd kill her. And 2 days later, she left, and that's been 37 years ago, and thank God. It's the only amend I still owe. I've located her daughter, but her daughter has not put me in touch with Joyce. So I'm ready to make the amend if I have to. But anyway, so, just going to college and drinking, and I never did homework, and then I got out and moved to L.A. and just roaming around. And some people, my brothers lived in the same apartment for 50 years. My sisters lived in the same house for 45 years. My other sisters lived in the same house for over 30 years. And I've lived probably in L.A. 45 years, and I have moved 55 times. And I've lived homeless in sobriety. I lived in the back of my truck for a year in sobriety. I came into a lot of money one time, about $500,000, and I turned that into $80,000 and thought I was going to be a stockbroker, a day trader. So I ended up moving into the back of my truck for a year, and luckily, and I was ready to commit suicide one night, and I just said to God, God, I can't live like this anymore. And the next day I found a little condo over in Inglewood, 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo for $50,000, and it's a treasure. And so anyway, I just roaming around, doing nothing. And then I met a lot of women in bars and things like this, and I met a woman in a Gaslight over there at 21st and Wilshire one night, and we started running around together. And what had happened was I drank so much, I had drank myself into impotence. I could not function, and it's just my story. It's weird, but that's how I got to AA. This happens to guys. I always forget to tell that the therapist, that problem went away after I got sober. So anyway, I always forget to tell that. But anyway, so I went to UCLA and I had the plumbing checked, and the doctor looked at me and he said, there's nothing wrong with you physically. He said you may want to see a therapist. And so there was a little place in Santa Monica. I remember there was a therapist that had gotten killed by a homeless guy over there. So I remembered that place, that you didn't have to pay anything because I didn't have any money at the time. And so I found that place, and I went in, and they signed me up with a female therapist, and I was in there, Robin, God bless her. And talking to her about, that I'm a worthless piece of shit, that, I can't get it up, and da-da-da-da, and da-da-da-da-da. Never a word about booze or alcohol, because it wasn't a problem to me. It just wasn't. And after the session, she said, you may not want to hear what I have to say. She said, but you're an alcoholic. You're not going to get your life straightened unless you quit drinking. Go to a couple of AA meetings this week, and we'll talk next week. And that was August 13th, 1991. I went to my first meeting at 5th in Arizona. There were guys probably my age now there, 4 or 5, I thought, ugh. And one young woman, and I thought, ugh, this is dreary. And I remember thinking, there's got to be a more upscale meeting. And I can tell that here in Pacific Palisades and Brentwood, and you understand it, but I tell it down in Watts, and they don't understand upscale meeting necessarily. But anyway, so what happened was I thought and so I got a meeting directory, and I found a second meeting that night. It was Tuesday night. It was Solitaire and Sunset. It was a step study. There was a famous actress in there that night, and there were a few people, and they were talking about God in a way that was not threatening, because my Catholic God had been rammed down my throat for all those years, and I have nothing. I thank God for my Catholic school education. I honestly think I would have been in prison if I hadn't been going to Catholic school. And anyway, so I got to that meeting, and they were talking about God in a way that was not threatening, and it was I felt like somebody had thrown a down comforter over my shoulders, and I thought, oh my God, I love it. And then after the meeting, somebody come up and patted me on the shoulder and said, keep coming back and let us love you until you can learn to love yourself. And oh my God, I cannot tell you the feeling that happened to me that night. And it was like, oh my God, I remember thinking, this is what I've been looking for in bars for 30 years, was the love that I felt right there. And newcomers, for you, AA meetings are like bars. Some you like, some you don't like. Go to a lot of meetings. You used to go to a bar, you didn't like it, what would you do? You go to a different bar, right? And you found a bar you liked. What would you do? You keep going back. AA meetings are the same way. If you don't like an AA meeting here, there's over 3,300 AA meetings in Los Angeles a week. You can find another meeting that you like. Get commitments to those meetings. I've been answering phones at central office for 19 plus years every Friday. And I've been graced with, I know there's about 6 people that I know in West Los Angeles who I was the man that answered the phone on their first call. And one of them's in this room today, and he's become like a son to me. I love the guy. And we've had our differences, but, it's like, wow, it's like, wow. And so I started going to meetings, and I started going to a lot of meetings. And first 5 years of my sobriety, I was going to 3 to 5 meetings a day because I wasn't working. And it's the only place I felt safe. And I got involved in commitments right away. My first commitment was they used to have a commitment at central office, or County General Hospital. And it was bedside. And you would go down there and go floor to floor to floor to floor. And if there were, talk to the nurses and see if there was anybody on their ward that was a alcoholic, and so we would go into these beds and see people, and distended livers, yellow, jaundice. One little gal in there one night, we were all hounding her, and she was a heroin addict, and she pulled the head over, or covers over her head, and 4 of us were standing there, and we said, "Is there anything you'd like? Is there anything we can do for you?" She said, "Yeah." She said, "I'd like to have a 38 so I can blow you all away." We said, "Oh, well, keep coming back," and we went down to the next room. Went down to the next room, and the little gal was so happy to see us, So so I've been doing these commitments, and then I got H&I. Here's a pitch for H&I. It's a great thing. You can go to institutions, and a lot of you in rehab, a lot of you in prison. I went to a maximum security prison out here at Wayside, North County Correctional Facility, once a month for 4 years, and I just took that commitment back on now, and I figure I'll do it for a year and see, and I love it. And I go to institutions, and things to that effect. And so get involved in H&I, and it'll never be the night will come where you get to say, "Oh yeah, I get to go out to jail," or because it's never come that I've wanted to do it on my night. But when I leave there, it's like, "Oh my God, Don, is there no end to your goodness?" And I just feel like it. And it's wonderful. And I don't know if I help any of those characters, but I'm sober. I'm sober 23 years and 11 months, and that's all that counts. It's better that you drink than I drink, and because as long as I'm sober, I got a shot. And I just got to give a shout out for Siddiqui here. She was, I never did homework when I was growing up. I never did homework. So when it was my first shift to do the secretary, all the commitments, I was supposed to transpose the names of the new commitment people on the page here. So when I got up here and made the announcements at halftime, that I had the names of the people. And Siddiqui said, I said, "Oh God, I didn't do it." I swear to God, I felt, I just broke out in an instant sweat, because one more time the feeling of, oh, Don's in trouble, and Don didn't do his homework. Don didn't do his homework. And I wanted to die. I wanted to get up and walk out of this meeting and screw that. God bless Siddiqui. During the first half, when the chips and the cakes were going, Siddiqui took out the list here and took the commitment list names, and she sat there and wrote those names down on that list. I get chills right now. And Siddiqui saved my ass in that moment, And I love you so much for that, Siddiqui. I get chills right now. I could cry. The love that you feel in these rooms, But if you don't keep coming and get commitments, you don't feel it. And I've never been good at sponsorship. I've had probably 15 sponsors. I did get a sponsor early on, and I worked the steps. The first step, I didn't have any problem with it. I didn't realize I was powerless over alcohol. I thought, well, I don't know that I'm powerless over alcohol, because I could go to dinner and have a couple of drinks and then not drink the rest of the night, or go a few days without a drink and not drink. So I don't know that I'm powerless over alcohol, but the hook that got me was the second half of the first step. My life was unmanageable. I knew it. My life was unmanageable. And so the second step came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. There again, talking about God or power greater than yourself, whatever. I didn't have any problem with that. I just had no problem with it, And the third step, made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand Him. Had no problem with all. And I like what Russell Brand said here at this meeting here about 6-8 months ago, or whatever he said. You can do the first 3 steps basically by nodding your head. Yeah, 1, oh yeah, 1, 2, oh yeah, yeah, 3, oh yeah, yeah. But then the meat of the program is number 4. You know, I never had any problem with number 4 because I've been going to confession every Friday. Going to Catholic school, you're going to Mass every day, and every Friday you go to confession. So I've been doing that all my life. It didn't bother me at all. And I got busy doing the 4-step, and I wanted to get it done in my 9th month of sobriety because I was going back to Wyoming to do a lot of research around this shooting. And so I got it done in my 9th step, my 4th-step, and we went up to the top of Mulholland there at Beverly Glen, and there's a big reservoir up there, and we sat and I read it to him and sobbing, you know, a lot of guilt and shame around that shooting and whatnot. So I got it done, and then went home and did the business about the 6th and the 7th step and character defects, and you know, character defects are alive and well in me today. You know, I still have gluttony and sloth and about lust, but you know, a lot of this stuff that I just like, you know, and but anyway, so I got that done. I went up to Wyoming and doing some research around the shooting and whatnot, and then in June of I graduated from high school in 1963. So when I'd wake up at night and I couldn't sleep, I'd start saying the Lord's Prayer, some prayer to make me go back to sleep. So that shooting happened on June 1st. It was a Tuesday, 1954. And I woke up one night and I started saying the Lord's Prayer to help me go back to sleep. And Our Father who art in heaven. And all of a sudden, this loud voice in my bedroom said, "Relieve me of the bondage of self." And I liken it to Bill Wilson's white light experience. I had a loud voice experience. And the guilt and the shame and all the weight about that shooting was lifted off my shoulders. I cannot explain, I can't tell you the weight that was lifted. And anyway, I said, I've got to talk to somebody about this, Jesus. And I thought, well, I can't tell anybody in Los Angeles. It's 3:30 in the morning. They're going to think I'm crazy. But my brother is sober 31 years now. I'm sober 23. He's sober 31. He lives in New York. I said, oh, it's 7 o'clock in New York. So I called him and talked to him. And we were talking about, later that day, it dawned on me that day, 39 years to the day, that day that everything was lifted from me was a Tuesday. It was June 1st, 1993, exactly 39 years to the day that shooting happened, and I was relieved of the bondage of self and all the weight of that accident, that shooting. I've been back to that boy's grave. I called a friend of mine, John, that I grew up with, and I said, "Are you going up to your class reunion in Wyoming?" And he said, "Well, I hadn't thought about it." He said, "Why, you want to go?" And so I said, "Sure." So it turns out, because I was going to go and make an amends at this boy's grave if I ever got to Denver, Colorado, and I didn't have any reason to go there that I could foresee. Well, it turns out that John said, "Why don't you fly up to Cheyenne and we'll go up to Rawlins?" So I got a flight, and the flight went through Denver, Colorado, and I had a 2-hour layover in Denver, Colorado. And so I got to go out to that boy's gravesite and read a letter to that boy and burn that at that gravesite. And it's a beautiful setting in the Rocky Mountains. It was just spectacular. And I went to my 30-year class reunion. I didn't graduate from high school, but I grew up with all those kids. And so I was at that dinner that night, and I was going to talk to these kids about this and tell them. And as I was talking about something, it didn't make an impact on their life like mine. Thanks, Terry, that it did in mine. But as I got up there and I said something to them, as I was walking back to my seat, there was a standing ovation, and they were clapping for me. And I was, oh my God. And it was totally gone. And I got back. So, doing the steps and 9, I've made all my amends. When I was about 15 years sober, my son was in his 40s. I decided to pay all the back child support that I'd never paid when I was growing up. And I called my ex-wife. It wasn't that much, but I called my ex-wife and I said, and she agreed to that amount of money. And I would have loved to have seen the look on her face when she received that first check for that child support. But anyway, I've made that amends, and something else happened out in my life a little later on, where because I had made that child support, I was a free man. And so I get down, and 10th step, we get to clean up the wreckage of the past, on a daily basis. And 11 thoughts of prayer and meditation. I try to pray quite a bit, and in meetings they say pray in the morning, pray at night, but it says in the Bible pray without ceasing, because as long as I'm not praying, and I don't do it all the time, but I try to, as long as I'm not praying, the beast is trying to talk to me. The disease is trying to talk to me and still tell me what a worthless piece of shit I am, and that I'm no good, nobody loves me. And that's not the case. I got a couple of texts this morning. Oh, we love you. You're going to do great. We love you. And it's so weird because my mind still wants to say, oh, yeah, but you're a killer. Yeah, but. So anyway, So the other day I thought about this, and I was looking downstairs, and I found a bottle. And so, you know, we talk about people, they say, I can't meditate. Oh, I can't meditate. I can't meditate. I think, you know, I want to tell them you're using the wrong English. It's I won't meditate. I won't meditate. Because there's nothing wrong. I can sit down for a minute. And I want to demonstrate this little bottle right here is meditation. You know, I wake up in the morning, I can hear the rattling, you know, and this is what's going on, you know. But then if I sit down, and look, and that's what happens. The dust settles, and I can see clearly. Yeah, but I'm going to lose my job. She doesn't love me. They don't love you. Yeah, but. Oh. I can see clearly. Wow. Yeah, but. And I tell you, so this is a great, and I do this around my house a lot, you know, and I set it there and I watch it. And in the morning, it's crystal clear. And no matter how muddied the waters is, if I sit calmly for a while, and I suggest it, get yourself a little bottle of water and fill it up with some muddy water and leave it sit overnight and watch it in the morning. And it just sits there. It just sits there. And as long as I sit quietly, I don't, you know, and there's all kinds of meditation practice. I don't have anything against it. But as long as I just sit, things become clearly. And that's when God can get through the chatter and talk to me, you know. And the 12-step, I answer phones at central office. Been doing it for 19 years, every Friday. I absolutely love that commitment. I absolutely love it. And I don't know if I help anybody out there, but the chaos that I hear on that phone a lot of times is like, thank you, God, that I'm here and not there. And, you know, and thank God, you know, how many people have died in the last 3 days around booze and alcohol, you know, and we're here on a Sunday morning doing this wonderful thing, you know. I go out on 12-step calls. If you've never been on a 12-step call, if somebody calls you and wants you to go on a 12-step call, go. And there's a man in this room that I've been on a couple 12-step calls for. I love him. I was down in San Diego with him yesterday. We were kayaking in La Jolla Bay, you know, and it's wonderful, you know. And 12-step calls will keep you square, you know. I mean, you'll be so grateful. So if you ever get the opportunity to go on one, they don't do much anymore, go. And, you know, go to any length to stay sober. And newcomers and old-timers, you know, we're not a glum lot. If you're not laughing, you're not taking this program seriously enough. And I want to thank you for having me. Thanks. No trick questions, John. Go ahead, John.
John, thank you so much. Was there any healing with your father?
Oh, my dad, yeah, my poor father. Oh, was there any healing with my father? You know, my poor dad, he died. He was 50 when I was born. He died when I was 30. And one day, I just couldn't take it anymore. And I was 25 and he was 75. This frail old man, I can imagine. And I just reared back one day, and I swung at him, and in mid-swing, I didn't go for his face, and I hit him right in the chest as hard as I could. And he fell back, and there was a big plate glass window there, and I thought, oh my God, he's going to go through that plate glass window. Luckily he didn't. But anyway, he died in 76 with no sobriety or nothing, you know. And I feel so sad for my father, so sad. I love my dad today because my father lost 4 sisters and 2 brothers and his father to tuberculosis before he was 20 years old. I think 20 years old. But his whole family was wiped out. And I would love to sit down and talk to my father today with what I know about Alcoholics Anonymous and the healing and the pain and how did he deal with that. So I've been to his grave and read a letter, you know, to him. But I feel so badly for my father about that. But I've made my amends with him, and you know, I hope that he's in peace and wherever he's at. So, thanks, Sean. Lou. Well, it wasn't a murder. It was just I was 9 years old. Oh, what was that I wasn't charged with nothing happened around that murdering. There was an inquest, and the 2 other boys were there, and it came out that I did not understand the circumstances of my actions, because I was just 9 years old. I was only 9 years old, and I didn't, I mean, the pull on a .22 is minimal, and I didn't mean to shoot him. There was no malice or anything like that. But I tell you, I thought I was going to reform school. That's what I kept crying all the way to the hospital. I'm going to go to reform school. I'm going to reform. And nothing. So thank God. And there's another guy that I know in the program who's had similar experience. And so every once in a while we see each other. We go, "Hey, Killer, how you doing?" So it's kind of like. So if you want to call me Killer up here, say hi, Killer. Doesn't bother me at all. So thanks, Lou. Charlene. Well, thanks, Charlene. What's my next frontier in sobriety that I'd like to expand? Just get some, as I get older, I've realized I came to LA and I wanted to accumulate stuff. I wanted to accumulate stuff, but I've never been good at that. And now as I get older, I realize all this stuff that I thought I had to have when I was growing up, now I wish I didn't have. And becoming more spiritual than materialistic, and helping other people. I'd like to help other people. And my next deal is I have enough air miles to go to Africa. And I want to go to Africa, but I'm scared. I'm scared to pull the trigger and go. And I'd like to go there and spend, it's like people come from Europe and they think they're going to see America in a week, right? I'd like to go down there and spend 4 or 5 months. And so that's one of the deals. And just, become less mouthy, a little more restraint of tongue and pen, and just, live a peaceful life that I can help other people, and help others to because we are tortured souls. Alcoholics are tortured souls, and it's brutal, it's brutal. And I had a little incident here recently where I woke up Friday night, and I'm sober 23 years old, because this disease is progressive. And I see a lot of people with time who quit doing the deal. And I woke up on my sofa Friday night about 6 weeks ago, and the loneliness, it's a disease of loneliness, this loneliness that I felt, and the pain was so excruciating that I thought, I got to drink. This is what I drank about. And luckily, I've been around long enough that I knew I was tired, go to bed, and I go to my favorite meeting on Ohio Street in the morning. So I went to bed, and here I am, But old-timers and the beast is alive and well, and it's working out in the gym 24/7. And if I don't keep doing my exercise around AA, I get a little flabby. And when the beast comes up like that, if I'm not in shape, I don't have any defense. And that's why a lot of people go out, I'm sure, and die drunk. And I've heard a guy with 52 years, a bunch of 42 years, 30 years, So that's what I hope to do. I hope that answers some sort of a question. Siddiqui.
So you have this uncanny knack of tracking me down all over the world. You've got me in Africa, in Australia. Do you have a global connection with other people in AA? And if so, how did you cultivate that?
Well, thanks. I've tracked Siddiqui down. Track, I think, is the wrong word. But anyway, I've found. I've thought about it. But yeah. And but one thing that Siddiqui and my friend Terry here, God bless Terry, because I've answered phones at central office, there's an international directory down there, and there are directories for the United States central offices, and I've prided myself in that. I have gotten people to meetings in Sweden and Africa and Alaska. Terry up there skiing one time, and she called me. She said, "Don, I got to have a meeting. I needed a meeting in where it was, someplace in Alaska." And I did a little work, and I found a little meeting in a Catholic church up there in Alaska, and she was able to go to, and Siddiqui, the same thing, and somebody in Australia, the same thing, And, it just, I feel like $1 million because I do it, and this is a disease of selfishness and self-centeredness. And I think about myself a lot. But, it's and I just want to close with one little thing. I never raised a child. 10 days after my son was born, I went to Vietnam for a year and was gone. And then, I never saw combat in Vietnam. It's too bad Noy's not here today. He'd appreciate this. The only combat I saw in Vietnam was I ran up to a guy one day, and he hit me with a fist. There was one hit to the fight, and I lost a tooth, and it had 5 stitches in my nose. And anyway, so I don't know what the point of that was. Oh, I never raised a child. So one day, about 2 or 3 years ago, I saw a man walking down the street with this little child on his finger, and she had to hold her little tiny hand around his finger. And I tell you, the pain was visceral. I wanted a little girl to spoil, you know. And I've never raised children, and me, it's painful. And sometimes when people come up here and they have their little children, God bless them, you know, and they say, but there's a lot of pain around that. I mean, I could have a child now at 70, but I know for women there's a lot of pain around not having raised a children. So I get a little nervous when people do that. But God bless, you know, God bless it. So what about the newcomers? What about newcomers?
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down. And then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.